determined to bring thousands of new homes to the city in the next few years. Under the province's More Homes Built Faster Act, Windsor is expected to build 13,000 new homes by 2031. And according to recent research, the Windsor-Essex region will need 30,000 homes to deal with climbing demand.
There are lots of different issues in play, and our goal is to try and figure out how to move through all of these pressures that are there, work with the home builders to see them realizing the goal of building the homes.
Today, leaders from across the region met with private developers at a luncheon hosted by the Windsor-Essex Home Builders Association to make a plan for housing needs. Right now, the Windsor-Essex Home Builders Association says that 1,500 new homes are built yearly in Windsor-Essex. To meet the projected demand, that number will have to double. Leaders today were hopeful that we can meet this goal, but they say that there's challenges, some of those being labor and land supply, as well as supportive infrastructure, things like sewage and hydro to run the new homes.
We are trying to fine-tune the process. That has been a complaint for a number of years, and that is the message, where we are ready for developers to come into our community and build those houses. We have properties available to build subdivisions and homes of every level. So now it's just a matter of come in and build.
It's great news with all of the investments that are coming into our community. That's going to attract even more people into the region, which is good news. But where do we put them? And so, we've got to make sure that, we can accommodate all these folks. What was alluded to here with all of my colleagues was basically we're willing to roll up our sleeves and get the job done.
A big topic today was affordability. Leaders say that we need to build housing that's attainable for the community. In the short term, they say we need transitional housing and that new builds need to include social housing units. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
Upwards of 60 downtown residents are moving into an emergency shelter tonight. Their apartment building at 1616 Olette is without proper heat and electricity.
It's very difficult for people to stay on a cot. It's, as you can see, they're only so wide, and it is a congregate sheltering system. We'd like to see people on them, no longer than 2-week period, but we just don't know. If longer, we can house them, but we'd really like to see them back into their accommodations and their apartments.
Canadian Red Cross staff are using the city's John Atkinson Memorial Community Centre for the shelter. They got the call at noon and were able to be set up and ready for people within hours. The gym is being used as a sleeping area with cots. The residents will also be served 3 meals a day and be bused from the apartment on Olette Avenue. No children are expected to be at the shelter, and any pets will be taken care of by the Windsor-Essex County Humane Society. The city says the owners are committed to having the heating and electrical issues fixed quickly. Officials say it's been without centralized heat for some time and ordered everyone out earlier today. The building has 120 residential units. $100 million. That's what victims of last year's Wheatley explosion are seeking in a new lawsuit. They're taking action against the municipality of Chatham-Kent and the company hired to deal with the source of a hydrogen sulfide gas leak. The class action suit alleges the town and HSE should have turned power and gas off to the building which exploded and should have taken proper care of the houses that were evacuated.
They should have had a system to inspect each property and dealt with the refrigerator. They didn't empty the refrigerators for months.
I think more than the lawsuit, I think people just want our town back. That's the main thing. I mean, this is not any kind of a cash or money grab. We want our town back. We want things back the way they were. And as I say, we're 15 months in and we really haven't heard from CK in, I don't know, we've had nothing official in what, 3 or 4 months?
The explosion on Erie Street in August of last year destroyed buildings and displaced hundreds of residents. Portions of the downtown remain blocked off. Strasbourg says it could take up to a year for a judge to decide whether to certify the class action and allow the lawsuit to go ahead. CBC has reached out to the defendants. Chatham-Kent's lawyer says they are not in a position to comment but are concentrating on getting the scene back to normal. HSE has not responded. Canada's public safety minister says the head of the RCMP warned him of an urgent threat of violence the day before the Emergencies Act was invoked. It came during his testimony today at the inquiry into the federal government's use of the act. CBC's Marina von Stackelberg reports.
I was extremely concerned that this had reached a new height of both urgency and emergency.
Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino says the day before the government invoked the Emergencies Act, RCMP Commissioner Brenda Lucki called him personally. She had secret information and was gravely concerned. One of the blockades set up by convoy protesters at the border in Coutts, Alberta, could turn violent.
She underlined for me that the situation in Coutts involved a hardened cell of individuals who were armed to the teeth with lethal firearms, who possessed a willingness to go down with the cause.
Police knew this because RCMP officers were embedded with those protesters.
She was justifiably concerned that there not be any leak of this information because lives literally hung in the balance.
Testifying before the inquiry, Mendicino says Lucky's call was a threshold moment for him. The situation with the convoy protests was escalating.
It was so urgent that I said to her, well, look, I can't just keep this information to myself. At a minimum, I have to be able to share it with the Prime Minister.
In the early morning hours, the Mounties moved in, seizing firearms and charging more than a dozen protesters, 4 of them with conspiracy to murder RCMP officers. Later that day in Ottawa, the Prime Minister announced the government was invoking the Emergencies Act.
The inquiry has previously heard that the night before the act was invoked, Lucki also emailed Mendicino. She told him that police had not exhausted all options available to them to shut down the protests using existing laws. Mendicino says he doesn't remember that email, but he remembers the call on the same day and what she told him about Coutts. He says that was and still is one of the key reasons why he felt the Emergency Act was needed. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
Windsor's Little Italy is full of soccer fans, but Erie Street isn't as lively as you'd expect it to be during the World Cup. Italy didn't make the cut, disappointing fans after an exciting Euro Cup win just 2 years ago. Fans still have a home team to cheer for, though. Canada is in the World Cup this time around, but businesses say it doesn't draw the same type of crowd along Erie Street.
An example of us winning the Euro Cup was on a Sunday, so it literally, I bet you, it multiplied business by 50 times the business that we would do on a regular Sunday. We did on that Sunday due to Italy being in the finals of the Euro Cup. So it's definitely hurting business not having Italy in the World Cup this year for Windsor.
For some hardcore Italian soccer fans, cheering for Canada is all they can do during the World Cup this year. Canada plays its first game tomorrow afternoon against Belgium. It's no Italy, which ties for second for the most World Cup wins, but as sports fans told CBC's Jason Vio, they hope it'll draw the same excitement.
If it was hockey, I would be rooting hard for Canada, but when you think about soccer, how can you not think about Italy? I mean, I think everybody's rooting for Canada, but it's a cautious cheering because we don't have huge expectations, which might be a good thing for the club.
Been a soccer fan for 40 years. Yep.
Been rooting for primarily for those 40 years.
Well, before that it was Italy, but now that Italy's not in, might as well go for Team Canada.
I am very upset because at my age to see 2 World Cup with no Italy make me sad, but what are we gonna do? Well, I feel good because at least Canada is in.
What about, though, if Italy was playing against Canada? How would you feel then?
Well, that is no easy question, but Italy would be the first in my heart.
It's porch pirate season, and as more people turn to online shopping, it's doubled since the beginning of the pandemic, according to Canada's Consumer Association. Police say the number of thefts of packages from porches has also increased. Dale Molnar has more now on how you can protect yourself from becoming a victim.
These people, they feel they need to steal.
Tom Ridsdale told CBC News last year he has been plagued by porch pirates for years. He took matters into his own hands and put nasty things in fake packages to get back at the culprits. But police say not to do that. They say one of the things you can do is get help from neighbors.
If you don't have a surveillance camera of any type, make sure you possibly leave your packages with a neighbor, have a neighbor come over and take those if you have a time or date that you're going to be getting some of these packages. And if you're out of town, definitely have somebody that's in charge of coming on a daily basis to check for mail or packages at your home.
Police say you can also have the packages sent to a service such as Canada Post. But Bruce Cran of the Consumers Association of Canada says people find that inconvenient.
They're not overly anxious to participate in picking packages up at depots unless there's some sort of a reward. And I don't know that any of them offered any sort of reward other than the probable security.
ADT Security has a list of other precautions you can take, such as getting a lockbox to replace your current mailbox, have your package delivered to your work, get to know the delivery people and give them preferences where to leave packages, install motion detector lights, install a security camera, ask that a package be left in plain view or establish a delivery spot that is obscured by other objects or landscaping, and require a signature upon deliveries. There are also items on the market that can lock the parcels in place until you can retrieve them. Risdale says he hasn't had a problem since CBC did a story on him a year ago. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
It's an American Thanksgiving tradition the locals in Cottam have gobbled up. The local United Church has been serving turkey dinners since the 1940s. The pandemic forced a switch to takeout only, and now organizers have decided to make this arrangement permanent. They say it's better for everyone because of the difficulty with parking and congestion in their lot. The church is still taking orders for Thursday, and they expect to serve about 1,400 meals. There are plans to have a dine-in meal in February where people can sit down, chat, and have some coffee while they share their stories. 2 local groups are stepping into gear to bring hot meals to those in our city who need it the most. The Soup Shack just opened for the first time to feed those who live on Windsor's streets. We caught up with them last night.
There you go. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Our Soup Shack is a mobile soup shack which will be stationed at Throne of Grace Church located on Victorian Park. We will be serving hot soup and warm beverages. We will also be handing out personal hygiene, coats, and sleeping bags also during those months. We're also trying to fill food insecurity gaps, get the word out to our street friends in regard to having a hot meal before they go into the shelters. If they're unaware of what shelter's available, we'll have our mobile devices available.
We decided to start the Soup Shack because we noticed a gap in food security between the hours of 6:30 at night and 8 a.m. the next morning, where individuals experiencing homelessness or living rough don't have access to any food source. The individuals that we're targeting for services, they don't have access to social media. You know, they often don't watch the news or hear any of that kind of information. So we're really waiting for word of mouth to get out, and I think that it's going to be like wildfire once it does. I anticipate that we'll have a very high rate of usage.
Windsor's starting to understand that there's people on the street that need to survive. So yeah, it's a good humanity thing. There's going to be probably a lot of people I know from the mission and people from Glengarry area. Yeah, that's basically, I mean, whoever comes into effect, whoever I encounter, they're going to know about this place, yeah, for sure.
We have big plans. We'd love to have soup shacks all over, and we're excited about the fact that the Soup Shack is mobile, which means it can go anywhere we go.
It is time for Sounds of the Season.
Yes, it is Sounds of the Season time. We're both excited. Our first Sounds of the Season together, Kat. I can't wait.
We can't wait at all, and we're so excited because over the next month, we're going to be sharing stories with you out of our community, about how people are helping one another into the holidays.
And we're also going to have live shows where we'll be inviting community members to come join us and see what CBC Windsor is all about during the holiday season.
And you can find more information about all this online, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're also going to be raising funds over the next month with everything going towards the Windsor Essex Food Bank Association. Can't wait to share this all with you.
Don't miss Sounds of the Season.
Ford.
It's time now for a look at our weather forecast, and for that we've got Colette Kennedy with us. Colette, I was very pleased that it was a milder day today than it was yesterday.
Yes, it was a beautiful day today, and I am going to take responsibility for the fact that I forecast no, I don't mean take that.
I was ready to give you all the credit, Colette.
I'm ready to admit my foibles. I forecast 6 degrees and we made it to 9, so to me that's a blown forecast, but I'm not sure anyone minds when it goes in that direction. And also, maybe you'll help you forgive me, the hot spot in Ontario today. Not in Canada, Tofino, at least so far at 11 degrees. But hey, hot spot in Ontario. But then I got to turn this around and tell you we have a chillier night ahead tonight. The winds won't be that strong, but just enough to give a wind chill, so it makes it a little cooler tomorrow morning. But in general, when we talk especially about our daytime highs, boy, oh boy, but even our lows after tonight, more mild days ahead. So 6 degrees, the seasonal daytime high, and we're talking, 8s and 9s in here. And by the end of the week, I do have to say we're going to have some showers moving in, but a really bright, sunny, and beautiful day on Wednesday. Current temperatures, they're looking like this, and you can see it depends on the wind direction where exactly that temperature is right now, whether the wind's coming off the lake. A little activity to the north, it's going to stay there, and so that kind of mix over the lake there over Lake Huron stays to the north of us. Just a bit of cloud cover at a few spots through the overnight on the tail end of that. And then into Wednesday, there it is, high pressure, a little bit of fair cloud around us. But for southwestern Ontario, I think we're going to be seeing just kind of bright sunshine. Things begin to change, though, into Thursday. Now, still bright to start. And some of this is just some high, thin cirrus cloud. But then we'll see increasing cloudiness at the mid-levels. And that will start to change things. And then late Thursday, we'll have this first system coming in. So it could even bring us some sprinkles overnight, Thursday into Friday, but I'm putting some showers, light stuff in the forecast for Friday, okay? That wind chill tonight, I mentioned it, -8 to -10, and the lows of -4 to -5. But then after that, you're going to see how those overnight lows come up. And I think you're going to notice something here with the daytime highs as well. We'll get to that Tofino number by Thursday.
I know, I was going to say a double digit. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
When we come back, we're going to go to international news. Stay with us.
Listen.
Iran hit northern Iraq today with missiles. The target, Iranian Kurds taking refuge in Iraq. Iran blames them for fueling the protests that have rocked the country since mid-September, when a Kurdish woman died in the custody of morality police. The tension in Iran is felt deeply by people here in Windsor, as well as in Toronto's large Iranian community. Katie Nicholson met with some of them and has this report.
The message doesn't even deliver. Their internet is shut.
It's been 2 weeks since Sarah Shariati has been able to get a hold of her grandfather in Iran. Today, another day of uncertainty. It's been like this for the last 3 months, as her family and friends are caught in a vicious cycle of protests and violent crackdowns.
Some of my friends have been arrested. We have no news of them. Some of them have been injured. There have been so much tear gas into university dormitories. I keep thinking when I'm walking on campus that, oh my God, how safe I am and how normal life is here. And they have to worry if they can even, they can be alive tomorrow.
Few understand the risk the protesters are taking as well as Azam Jangavi, who in 2018 ripped off her headscarf in public and was swiftly arrested.
You know, I broke my silence. This is the key, you know. Right now, every Iranian broke their silence.
Jangavi has been doing her part to spread the word of the revolt in Iran, amplifying the voices of the protesters from her new home in Canada.
I think they are so brave. They know they might be killed, but every day they come back to a street.
Toronto is home to one of the largest Iranian diaspora in the world, second only to Los Angeles. Nearly 90,000 people have settled here in the Greater Toronto area.
And many of them come here to Sam Fayez's store to shop.
Everybody's upset, everybody's down. It's, things quiet down, right? I mean, it's Monday. My store's supposed to be a little bit busier than it is right now.
What's needed, he says, more international pressure on the Islamic regime.
It all goes back to external governments putting their foot down and imposing tougher, stricter sanctions.
And while the world isn't yet rallying around the uprising quite as much as he'd like, in this store, there is support and community. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
Authorities in Indonesia say yesterday's earthquake killed more than 250 people. Now there's a desperate search to find survivors beneath the rubble. Officials say more than 150 people are still missing. Many of the victims are children who were in school when the quake hit. It had a magnitude of 5.6 and was centered in the country's most populous province, in a city about 75 kilometers from Jakarta. Officials say many of the dead were killed when poorly constructed buildings collapsed. Hospitals and emergency crews are overwhelmed, and people have been warned to spend the night outdoors because of aftershocks. Indonesia lies in the so-called Ring of Fire, an area surrounded by a stretch of volcanoes and fault lines that is prone to earthquakes. NASA got up close and personal with the moon. You are looking at a distant view of Earth and a much closer view of the moon, courtesy of NASA's Orion spacecraft. Right now, it's in the middle of some precision maneuvers to put it into the moon's orbit, using its thrusters and the moon's own gravitational pull to effectively swing it into place. NASA says Orion will enter the moon's orbit on Friday. Paris, France is known as the City of Lights, and once again, it is living up to that reputation. Over the weekend, the city flipped the switch on its annual holiday light display along the famous Champs-Élysées. Paris and local businesses are anxious to get tourists and shoppers out after the long pandemic disruption. But because of high energy prices and a looming fuel shortage due to the war in Ukraine, some austerity measures have been put in place. High efficiency lights are being used. The displays will be turned off earlier in the evening, and the event will be a week shorter this year. Officials say they'll use half as much energy as last year. The lights will shine every night until January 2nd. That is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. And you can also find us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.